Everyone, I'm Melanie with Painting Crafty, and it's Thursday night live draw along on YouTube. So welcome for my regular watchers who come on Thursday nights, and we're going to continue on with a little bit of the Valentine theme, but this could be used for any kind of occasion. It would make a darling sweet card, or just have a nice little drawing in someplace special. I have a little coffee nook in my house, and she would look so sweet framed and hung up there. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to show you step by step of how to draw her, and then add the watercolor at the end, just a simple little watercolor. For those who might be new following my page, this is the watercolor paper I use, Canson. It's 140 pound. It's considered a student grade, which means it's pretty reasonably priced. But I really find I get nice results with this watercolor paper. I'm kind of a firm believer, just spend just a tiny bit more for your watercolor paper, and then just buy the watercolors that you can afford, and just start the process there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this camera so it has little me and big picture so you can see exactly what I'm doing. There we go. So if you're new to my page and you like what we end up doing here, I'd love to have some new subscribers coming on over. Hit the ringing the bell and all those other good things. I so appreciate it. So let's go ahead and start. I'm working on a 6x6 square piece of paper, and I just divide my paper down the middle this way and across the center this way. That'll just help give you a good idea of like how big I'm drawing things and how to proportion them on your paper. Well, there's my friend Gloria coming on tonight, watching live. Thanks so much, Gloria, for popping on. I so appreciate it. Let's put this over here and let's take a look. I'm gonna start with this heart shape here. And if you look, the top of my hearts are just kind of touching the center of my line. This, if I eyeball it, is about half. So my heart is still within the half mark of this little area, this little quadrant down here. So it's a fairly small little heart, smaller heart, and I like that little fat little chubby bird is what I'm kind of go for. So I'm going to start with my heart right here, and I'm going to make a tick here on the center of this line here. And over here, that'll just give me a visual guide of knowing that I don't want to go any wider than that. That'll just help me keep my idea of my frame of how big I want my heart to be. Now, of course, you can draw it any way you want to. Hello, Joni. Thanks for coming on. Oh, well, hi, Deb. Thanks for coming on in tonight. So let's go ahead and make one side of your heart first. This is where we're going to look at our negative space. We've been working on drawing those hearts. And how do you get them a little bit even on each side? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw this side first, and then I'm going to make that a little higher. I'm not going to go so deep. Let's go a little bit shallower here. Okay, that's a better one. Now I can look at this little negative space here, and that's going to tell me how I'm going to draw the other side. So take a look at yours and see how that space looks like. And I'm going to come this direction here first, touch my line. Oh, and I can already tell I'm off. I want to try to match that if I can. It'll just help it look a little bit more proportionate wise and even. Okay, so now my negative space here looks very similar to my negative space over there. Now I'm going to train my eye. I'm going to take a look of where I'm going. So I'm going to follow it. And if you need to come up from here, go this direction now. That works too. You can, if it works easier to draw that way, to see where I'm going so that I'm kind of looking at how big my space is. Of course, you could always cut out a heart out of paper, old-fashioned way by, folding your paper like this on the fold and then cutting it and then using that paper as a tracer if you want to not monkey with trying to get it exact. But I like practicing, training my eye, training my hand a little bit to see if I can't get it to draw the way I want to, refine it just a tiny bit. Now I can kind of tell my one side is a little bit different than the other, but it's going to be close enough to make it work. All right, let's start on that chubby little bird. Now when I do this chubby little bird, I'm going to suggest that you try doing it where we're going to do the head first. So we're going to put our head on like this, and then we're going to be putting our body on like this. And now this would be considered a snowman bird, and especially a snowman bird if I stick my beak right on that end. We're going to switch it up a little bit and have a little bit more contour to our little birdie and make it look less like a snowman bird. But we are going to start out with some circles, so that will make a difference. I'm going to start up here with my head, and it's going to be on this side of my line. I'm going to do not much wider than my heart because I kind of want it to be a chubby little bird. So I'm going to start out with a nice round head. The head size is going to give it that chubby kind of bird look. So I'm going to start, this is probably about at least a quarter, if not a little bit bigger. So there's his little head. Now I'm going to put his body on, and I'm going to do that snowman look right away. I'm going to put my next circle in. I'm going to make sure I come all the way down to my center line where my hearts are. And I'm going to do that next circle that's going to be bigger. Okay, so now we got a funny looking snowman. He's laying sideways, but it's a snowman look. Hello, Carrie. Thanks for coming on. Now let's go ahead and we're going to change that. We're going to put the tail on. So he's got kind of a wren tail where it's coming up right off the back and then down. So we're going to build that off of our snowman shape. So I'm going to start here at the back, and then I'm going to start coming out. This is going to come up for my little wren tail. All right, and then I'm going to come back. And this is where I'm going to start making it less of a snowman shape and more of a bird. So I'm going to curve into this circle here. Then when I get here to my back, I'm going to follow this around, and then I'm going to come up to my head, and I'm going to connect those areas. And all of a sudden now we're going to get rid of that snowman. So we have more of a head that's coming this way. And actually I'm going to make it less of a curve, a little bit more straight. Okay, and make the back of it look like that. Now we got to fix the front because we still got this funny little shape right here. So let's come here, and we're going to come out a little ways, and we're going to roll it in to the front of our bird. We're going to connect it. So now we have the body. Now let's get rid of this. Now look how much difference that made in developing our bird. It looks less like a laying down snowman and more like a bird. So by making it around and connecting our parts of our body, now all of a sudden we got more of that chubby little bird and not a snowman. So the next step to not make it look like a snowman is let's fix that beak, because I said if we put it on like that, sticking off that front of that circle, that's that snowman carrot nose look. So let's change it a little bit by simply putting the beak on the inside. So I'm going to start my beak. I'm going to come with a line that's longer than what I really even need it. And I'm going to come right back into the inside of my head and stop. So now I have a beak line and where this lines up. Now with the line here, this is going to be the middle of my beak. And my eye is going to sit right here on the top. But what I want to do here is I want to make the inside of his beak. So I'm going to make a little kind of a V shape like that. We're going to set it back into his face a little ways. And then I'm going to come up to a point and catch up with my line of where I need it. Now I can erase it because I know it's a little too big. Okay, and then wherever the center of my beak is, this is the center of my line, my eye is going to sit right on top of that. Now your eye is closer to the beak than what you might think it's going to be. So it's not setting out here in my body. I'm going to be more towards the up part of where my beak is. Now, by doing that, we've all changed it from being a little carrot nose on our bird to having that beak look more like it's a part of that bird's face. And it's not just sitting and popping out, and it gives that little birdie a completely different look. Now, of course, I'll be drawing that in and just leaving a little catch light, but he already looks a lot less like a little snowman bird. Now let's go ahead and pop in a wing. Now, if we look at my wing here, because it's a small little wren, I'm not going to have big wings that come way out here past his tail. I'm going to keep it just a small little wing and then down this way. So out and then down. So I'm going to take a look here. This was my center line here. I'm going to start the top of his wing up this way, like a shoulder area. And I'm going to bring it out, making sure I'm not going past my tail area. And then I'm going to come back down, and I'm going to go a little bit lower, kind of like a teardrop shape, and then bring the bottom of the wing there. Now what's ever inside of here, I'm going to erase. And by erasing that, now all of a sudden, the wing will be in front and his body is behind. I'm going to erase these little lines there. I'm going to get out my big eraser and erase some of these guidelines. I thought I had it here. Let's go ahead. I'll just have to use this one, I guess. All right, well, erase some of these lines because I know I'm not going to need them anymore. And I'm going to put some little simple feet on this little guy to connect him to look like he was standing on that heart. All right. Oh, wait, to do his little feet, all I'm going to do is one's going to be starting here, and I'm going to kick it out just a little ways. And then you might see 1, 2, 3, and then there might be a little tiny bit of his back foot that you might see, just a tiny bit. And then this one's going to come a little inside of his body, just a tiny bit. And then we're going to bring it out, touch your heart, do the little toes, and then you might have a little bit of your back one if you can kind of see it. I don't spend a lot of time on the feet because they're not a real big important part of my drawing. I just kind of get those in there and they're in. So I have feet without not spending a ton of time on my feet. All right, he's looking cute, cute as can be. Now let's add a little flourish to it. And I just decided on these little lines. Now you can make it however you wanted it to be. You could continue on with your vine work and make it spiral around. On this one, I did one on just regular copy paper, but because if you're doing it on a larger format, maybe you would want your vines to be more of a heart shape and bring it down. So you could expand your drawing if you're doing it on a longer one. But because I'm making it a square, I had to fill in my space some way. So I ended up adding a little flourish off to the edge, and that's just those eyebrow shapes kind of that come across and down. Just a little simple eyebrow shape. Now to look like it, to help me figure out where to start and stop, after I draw my first one, I'm going to go lightly over and make a little mark so I have an idea of how tall I need to make the next one. And then I'm just going to do the opposite direction. And then after you get them drawn, just step back or hold your picture out a little bit and see if they kind of look, if they match. They don't have to be twins, but if they can kind of look a little bit similar, then you know it'll look just fine. I can kind of tell, I can tell my camera when I'm looking that they're kind of not. I can see better when I look in my camera than I can just straight on. But I think all in all, that will probably be good. Now I'm going to go ahead and draw some vines, and I'm going to hold my pencil a little bit farther back so I have a loose feel to my vines. I'm just going to start out with one. I'm going to come this direction. And I'm holding it back, being a little loose with it, not trying to control it too much. And I did kind of a heart shape. I'm going to double back here a little bit with my pencil. Now that one is coming in a little bit this way. Now if I start here, so they're not crossing, I could start up a little bit higher and then bring it around. And I might end up with a heart-ish look. But I'm not necessarily making it absolutely a heart. I'm just going to do a double. All right, I'm going to put in some leaves. And now these leaves are very open and loose. They're not, and I'm not drawing them all. I'm only going to actually draw just a few. And then the rest of the leaves, I'm just going to put in with my paintbrush and change the look by changing the color slightly. And some of these will have some pen detail at the end, and it's going to be very loose, and it's a style of drawing where you keep your pen down and you keep on moving it with not lifting it. And you can see if you can continuously line draw your leaves. They get a real kind of sketchy feel to it and not being so exact. So I'm just going to pop in a few so I know exactly how and where I kind of want to place them. And when I'm doing this part, I try to make sure I'm aware of that not all my leaves are going the same way. So if I have some that are curving this way, I want to make sure I balance it and bring it the other direction. You will need to decide whether all your leaves are facing up, or are you going to have some that are going up and then you will have some that are going down on the same stem. So that will need to be a decision you make about your drawing. I have some going up and then I have some going down. So now this is when I'm going to start changing to go down. So now the leaves I draw will be facing this direction. And like I said, I'm just going to pop a few in so I'm not doing all of my drawing. Then we're going to come this way. Real loose. You can still hold your pencil. You could do little groupings of 3. See if you can make them different sizes. And they don't have to be pointed little leaves like I'm doing. They could be a loop leaf too. There could be many ways to do these little leaves. I do like having one right at the end just to end it. Now this one, I'm going to end it here so it's facing this way towards the ones I just ended. So these ones here will be coming down this way, and I'm going to be filling up this space a little bit. All right, I'm going to add some smaller ones in there. Now see, I have all of them facing down. I need to change that somehow. So I'm going to be making some that come this direction, so not all my leaves are going just down. I'm going to come in here, make these ones come up. All right, I'm just being kind of aware that I'm not doing them all the same direction. Now this right here, this is that halfway mark. This is a good place to maybe look at changing directions if you want to change directions, to have them go down. And then I'm going to end them here. All right, I have a pretty fair amount for drawn ones. So I'm going to stop at that point and call it good. And I'm going to start in with my watercolor. Okay, now this is, normally I have a bigger eraser, but I don't know where it is. Oh. I'm going to use my little gummy eraser to lighten up some of the line work. I have a heavy hand. Thanks, Gary. I think he's cute too. I love little chubby birds. I'm going to use this kneaded eraser to lighten up my line work. I draw heavier so you can see it easier, but I also tend to draw easy. So these little harder. These little gummy erasers will pick up the pencil and lighten my marks, but I can still see what I've got down there without having to do a lot of pen work if you don't want to do a lot of pen work. I'm going to do a little bit of pen work. And of course, these ones don't leave any little rubber eraser marks, so that's handy sometimes too. So all you do is just knead that back in there. The graphite will kind of go inside of your kneaded eraser and you can keep on using it. All right, I'm going to start out with some watercolor. I'm just using this little inexpensive set of 50 colors is where I'm going to start. And I'm going to start with my heart tonight. If you're new to watercolor, you're going to want to make sure whatever set of watercolor you choose to use, you have a color card. Because as you can tell, the colors look so different here than what they're going to look on your paper. Because the paper is going to make a different, or it's going to show through your drawing. Oh, it's going to drop a single on me. All right, I'm going to start with a red. I have this set here, so I'm going to start there with my red. I have this little ceramic little palette that I really enjoy using because it is white. It gives me an idea of how what my colors are being mixed to. I'm going to mix this to tea consistency. And I've said this before, you'll usually hear tea consistency or milk. Tea consistency means it's got more water. You start your watercolors light and then you work your way dark. So I'm going to start my lightest red here. I'm going to try to leave a little white spot on my heart. This one I ended up with just a spot here, but I think I want it more up high is really where I want it. So I'm going to concentrate more on getting my lightest spot up a little higher this time. And I'm just going to lay this in. Now with watercolor, once you get it colored in, if you end up coloring it all the way in, you lose that ability to bring your white back because there is no such thing as like white watercolor. You could add some white in with gouache, white gouache, or a white pen, or even a little bit of acrylic paint if you want to. It's just going to look different. Watercolor is one of those unique mediums that leaving a little bit of your substrate showing is actually preferred. And if you can, it's a great look. So I have that wet. I'm going to give that a little chance to dry before I add my next layer. I agree with this. Is super cute. Oh, you love birds sitting on hearts. Oh yeah, and the leaves all the way around. It is a cute drawing. I love it. I think it would make a beautiful little thing to put in a frame and have up and just enjoy, or give it as a card to someone who's really special. Now, since I'm letting that dry, before I add the next glazing area on, I'm going to glaze another color over top, but I have to give that a little chance to dry. So I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to work a little bit on my leaves. Now I'm just going to look at my palette and I'm just going to free mix my colors. I'm not going to necessarily use them. I could use them straight if I want to, but I'm going to kind of free mix, just adding a little bit of color here and there and making my own colors. I'm going to start out light. I want to start light. I don't want to start dark. And that's going to help build the look of my leaves. So I'm just going to pick some and I'm going to start laying in some green. Now, if I don't like that color, I can add a little bit of color to it and make another one. Now, these are the ones that have the pencil on it, and more than likely I will come back in and do a little pen work on it. Watercolor is going to dry slightly lighter, Now I don't want to do a bunch of them all the same. So my look is I'm going to spread and make my color variant as I go throughout. So I'm going to pick a few to do, and then I can come back in and freehand in some other ones. So these will be the drawn ones. And then I'll have ones that act where there's no lines, where it's just drawn in. So that one's kind of bright. I'm thinking I'm going to pick up kind of a dirtier green and add a little bit more dirty green in there, a little bit more darker green. You could actually throw in some brown in there too. Hello, Mary. Thanks for coming in. So I want to change my color, and now I can come next to these leaves that I just put in and just do a simple little wash. You can see how the colors are different, and I can lay in some more leaves, shapes, without them being drawn, and they're just going to be layered in. And I can add them randomly around, which is what I want to do. I want to add, kind of go in there and just add them randomly and build up my shapes. And this is kind of, I like this part. I think this is fun, just to add this little bit of leaves in there and add that dimension that way. This is fun. I could sit and do this for a very long time. Okay, now I'm going to just choose another green, and I'm kind of using the same puddle, and I'm just making my own color. So I'm taking some more color, adding it in there. Perhaps I want to pick up a little bit of dirty brown just to tone it down again so it's not so bright, because I want a little bit deeper, darker color. And then I'm going to choose some more. Maybe this will be some of my drawn ones as well. But I can come in where I just did some of these light ones, and I can come in and add some more of this. This is still about tea consistency. It's pretty light. And I can layer in some that are just being in there, but they're not going to have pen work on them. Okay, like that. Now I'm going to make another green. We get to spend a lot of time making green. I'm going to make one more shade of green, and then I'm going to pick up a red brown this time. So that red and brown would be kind of opposite end of the color wheel. So that's going to tone down some of my green, and I'm going to make kind of just a really pretty dirty-ishy, darker olivey green. And I'm going to lay that next to some of my brighter greens. And I can even go over some of the shapes that I have on there too. So I can layer my shapes like here. I don't know if you can see that. I'm hoping you can see it. Now I laid that right over top of the one I just did. So I'm going to see some of the one underneath, but I'm also going to see the top. Really cool look. You'll want to try it and see the looks that you get. And you can build up your color in your leaves that way as well too. So if there's one that's like this one here is super bright, I can come over at the top of that color and add one of those in there. Fun look. Okay, here we go. Try some there. Okay, let's add more there. Okay, fun. All right, let's add, now I'm going to do another layer of red since this has been kind of water or weighted. So I'm going to take that same red I have, but this time I'm going to add a little less water. And then I'm going to come in and add my next layer. Now I'm not wanting to cover up everything I put on originally, but I'm trying to leave kind of a lighter spot there. So I'm going to kind of twist my hand around and move my motion so I'm not accidentally going to be covering up everything. So I still want to leave a little bit of space there. And then we're going to let this dry. And then we're going to come in and add a third layer on there. Okay. Beautiful. Now, if my red spot is a little too light, I can come in now with a little bit more water and tighten it up if you want to. Like I said, you could always cover more up, but you can't add it back in once it is covered up. And I wanted to make sure I left more of a white spot. Okay, pretty. Let's let that dry a little bit more. Now let's go back to doing some more green. Hello, Kelly Rose. Glad you came in this evening. Now let's choose another green. So I'm going to choose maybe a blue green this time. Pop it over here. And I'm still using that kind of dirty old spot, keeping on marrying my colors together. So they do give kind of an intermixed look. Now I'm going to come here and let's layer in some more. So I'm going to come over this one, add another shade of color. It's a different little color. Can you guys hear the water running? All right, and let's come in this way. And again, you're going to want to make sure you have leaves going all different directions. And as you can tell, I'm not really making super strong leaf shapes. They just have a point at one end, a belly in the middle, and a point at the other. So they're not really super fancy. All right, we're going to come this direction here. But again, make sure you're making different shapes when you're doing this, so they're not all the same shape. All right, let's put a little, size, that's what I want to say. Try to add some small ones in there just to give it a variety of your leaves. Ooh, that one turned out so cool with the overlay. Ooh, I love that one. Just an idea, should have done a groundhog in honor of well, yeah. Yes, I should have. Didn't think about that. You know, I don't pay that much attention. Now this one, I actually added a little bit of blue to it. Let's add a little bit of some blue on some of these greens. Maybe change it up by adding a little bit of that next color over was a blue, but I'm thinking that would be pretty layered over some of these as well and make for a fun color to add in. Okay, let's put this here. All right. I'm getting pretty good. I'm thinking I'm filling up pretty well. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and work a little bit on that bird now. Now for the bird, and I always say this, I don't particularly care for the browns in my set. So I just take a little bit of each of my browns and I mix them in this hole until I get a color that I like. Not all sets have the best color that you might want to use, so you can make your own. So I'm just going to take a little bit of everything I have here and mix it up together. I'm going to definitely make it light, put a layer on, and see what I end up with. Okay, so I'm going to touch this on my paper towel. Oh, that's pretty. Let's see, maybe I'll add just a tiny bit of black to it too, just to darken it up. Okay, yeah, that maybe looks good. Test it. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. Let's put a layer on my bird. Now for this little bird that I really did like having that little bit of white around his eye. And if you like that look, you might want to try to aim for having a little bit of white on there. I chose to have a highlight on his wing. You could maybe even do just a little highlight on his tail if you wanted to, but I figured this was in the front, so that would probably be a good place to shine a highlight. And I loved having that little bit of white around his eye and just a few little specks. So when I'm going to come in here, I'm going to try to do the same thing. So I'm going to come in and lay in and we're going to layer a couple different layers of brown. So I'm going to get a little close, but not try to cover up his eye. I'm going to still leave a little bit of white if I can. And I'm going to do the same color on his wing as well, but I'm going to layer in some more colors once it gets a little bit dry here too. So I'm going to aim to leave that white, if I can, in the front. All right, let's let this guy dry a tish. Okay, he already looks cute. I love his little chubbiness and his little, oh, he's darling. He's going to be great. And as you can tell, that's the first layer, but if you look over here, you can tell that there's a lot more dark, and by adding those next layers of brown, you can really change the look of your bird. All right, let's play a little bit with this heart again. I'm going to come in with a little bit more of that same red that we've been using, but then I'm going to be adding a little bit of that neon pink. You know I love that neon pink. If you follow me, you know I love that neon pink. I think it just adds a wonderful pop of color. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add another shade of this red. Not trying to cover up everything I just have on, but I want to add that next layer of richness to my heart, especially around the edge. I know that would be darker. I like that look of having the edges be slightly darker. Okay, and now my paper is wet. I'm going to go ahead and pick up that neon pink over here. And this is probably going to be about milk consistency. And then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to pop in a little bit of that pink, mostly on my edges, but by doing it when it's wet, it should do a little bit of that watercolor magic where my colors are going to be drawn into each other because it is wet. You can push and pull a little bit too to spread your colors around, but I really like that pop of the pink with the heart. I thought that looked great. And I'm really liking how I have more whites showing there than I did on my original one. On my original one, my highlight ended up being too low, I thought. But I really like how where my highlights are on here. I got a little splash there, a couple little tiny splashes there. So I like that look. Now I'm going to take a little bit of that first brown that I have still sitting here. I'm going to take a little bit more black in that color. And I'm going to use that as a vine color. So I'm going to come in here, give this a tap. Now I'm going to throw in a little bit of a vine work here. I'm going to be real loose with my brush. I don't have to connect it everywhere. I can go in and out. I'm just using the tip. That's a great thing about having one of these little round brushes. You get a nice little point. You can carry it out to the end of some of those leaves if you want to, but I'm just doing this real loose. And I don't have to worry about being exact. Oh, I can see where I need another green one in there. So I'm just adding a little bit of the brown as a vine. And the way you're going to get thicker and thinner lines is how hard you're pushing on your brush. So if you do it with light pressure up on your tip, you're going to get a smaller, skinnier line. If you're pushing harder, and flattening your brush, that round edge is going to splay out more, and that's how you're getting your thicker lines. So if you want thin lines, hold your brush up higher, soft pressure on your tips, and that's how you're going to get more of a thin line with your brush. Now, if you're not using a brush that has a really good point on it, you might get frustrated and the line work doesn't feel loose enough for you and thin enough, and perhaps you might want to just do it in pencil, or you could do it with a pen too and just keep it that way. Now you can get a little crazy, come in with just a little bit of line that comes into the middle. Now I did also make those little curves. I did those and I did mine. Ooh, isn't that an awful color? It's like this worst brown ever. It's like this orangey brown. I almost feel like popping it out sometimes and not even having it in that set, but it doesn't have the best browns. I have better browns, but I'd have to get a whole nother set out. Okay, let's add a little bit more black to this. I don't want as much water. Okay, so I'm going to take this nice brown now that I have, and I'm going to pop a little bit more on the back here, adding a little bit more shadow under. So remember, this is going to be the lightest part that we put on first, and this will be the next layers. There would be a shadow there coming in. I'm not trying not to cover up all of my white around his little eye because I'm trying to keep that still there. And then let's add a little bit here on his wing. I'm going to leave a little bit of a bright spot there. All right, well, my birdie's dry. I'm going to pick up more of a golden color, but I want it to be dirty, so I'm going to take a little bit of my dirty color, but I want it to be a little bit more golden. And I'm going to put that on my bird too. So I'm going to add just a little bit of golden color. Now there was a little brush I used, and maybe I got to find it again. Maybe it's in my set. If you have a scruffy brush that's sitting off to your side of you and you want to bring it in to do a little bit of, to make your bird look a little scruffier. Now I might have got it too yellow. Let's pick up a little bit more of this darker color. And I think I do have that little scruffy brush in here. I have a little brush that's not good really for anything except for doing this. It's a little, let's see, it's a little scruffy brush about this size. And the edges or the tips really aren't that great anymore. But what I can use this for is to pull out little feathers to make him look furry. So I'm going to take a little bit more of this red color here. And I'm going to come to my little bird and I'm going to kind of put some puddles at the edge. And then I'm going to take this little scruffy brush and I'm going to pull some of that little color out with just the tip of my brush to give him kind of a little bit of a feathery, furry look. Whoops, getting a little carried away with my fur. Featheries. Kind of give him a little bit of a chick look. Optional. You don't have to do this part, but you can play around with it if you want to. Maybe a little bit up here too. Just a little bit of a chicky look to it. Just a fun little extra. Now for his chest, I'm going to pick up a little bit of this red color. My colors are still pretty wet here, but I'm going to tap in just a tiny bit of this red on his breast line to add, give him a little bit of a red belly. Okay. And I'm also going to pick up a little bit of that bright color too, and I'm going to tap that in there just a tiny bit. I don't want to get too carried away, but I want to add some. Okay, let's work a little bit on his wing here yet. I need to add a shadow on that wing to give a separation. I'm going to come up here and add just a little bit more dark on that part, and maybe here as well. Okay. A little bit too much white there. Now his eye is going to change too, because I'm going to come in and just do a little bit of marker there. Now I use this color here for these things, but this could be any color that you wanted it to be. Even if you didn't even, you might not even have done this part. You might have just kept up with the leaves. Okay, and I saw a couple leaves that I kind of missed when I was looking at. Okay, good. All right, let's just choose another green. I've got one more. I've got a couple greens that I didn't really fill in yet. And we'll do those. And I'm going to add more brown to that. Ooh, that's a beautiful shade. There was one here I kind of missed. That. Here's another one. And if I want to pop in, I got there. I probably should choose one other spot since I have this shade of green, and it will be different than the other ones. Remember, you can go over some of the ones you've already done and create that layered look, which is just, I think, amazingly gorgeous. Okay, super cute. I'm going to move down. If I even have a tinier brush, a little bit smaller brush to do his beak, I'm going to use just the tiniest bit of, I forgot something. This will work. A tiny bit of orange in there. Just a tiny bit of orange. Just to do a little bit of orange on his beak. Not a lot of water. Mostly pigment, not a lot of water. We don't want it to go everywhere. So I'm going to come right in here and just do a little bit of layer on his beak. I'm going to see if I can't leave a tiny highlight of white at the top if I can. Now if it ends up that I can't, I can always pop that in with my Uniball pen as a little bit of a bright shadow, or not shadow, but a highlight. Okay, don't go too far or I'm going to wreck his beak and it'll have a really funky little carrot nose beak instead. All right, let's take my liners. Let's start with a little bit of pen work. So I'm going to use my 1 for this drawing. My, let's see, find what I'm looking for. Oh, 3. You know, I've got all of these pens and they look like they're all number 3s. Let's see. Oh, found a 1. All right. The 1 will be a good size to do my eye. So I'm going to come in here and make this a dark eye, but I'm going to try to leave a little bit of white in there just as a highlight. And by keeping that tiny bit of white in there, I'm going to bring him to life. So I'm going to let that dry just a tiny bit more, and then I will do a little bit of sketch work on that bird because he's not quite dry all the way. But I'm going to do his little feet. So I'm going to come down here. At this stage, I'm not too concerned. My style that I like to do is very sketchy, hand-drawn look. So I'm not looking at having perfect lines. So this is where I'm going to do a little bit of that contour line work. I'm going to put my pen down, start sketching, and try to leave my pen down and not lift it up, and see what sort of line work I can get. So I'm going to start here and work my way up, and then I'll work my way down. So I have originally my lines. So I'm going to have to double back on some of them. I'm not looking at following exact. This is a good exercise, this contour line work. Okay, and then there. All right, so I got a little bit of sketchiness going there. Coming back. And my pencil marks are still lightly there, so I can see where I had kind of intended to have drawn ones. But you don't have to even follow all of them if you don't want. And then my lines. Okay, so you can see, hopefully you can see, it's just a very much a loose line work that I followed throughout there. So now I'm going to come up here and do the same. And if you need to hold your pen farther away to be able to relax your hand enough to do it, and remember, try to keep your pen down and don't come back up. And it's going to make some just really fun pen work on your drawing. Now I'm going to come back here, come back up. Cool. It's kind of fun. Now I'm going to do the same thing on my bird. I'm just going to do a little bit more sketch marks on him. I'm going to come in here and just make some little marks for his side of his eye, just a kind of a little feather mark there. And I'm going to redefine his wing, and I'm going to do that in a sketchy motion too. And I'm going to do his tail, his little bit of his outline, but I'm not going to do it all. And let's come on his chest. And then I made a little tiny feather pattern that were just little hatch marks coming back and forth, just to give his little chest some interest on there. And I'm going to strengthen up that beak now, so I can make that beak a little bit sharper, define it a little bit more, add that in there. Okay, so I just added a whole bunch of whimsy, sketchy look to my bird. Now I'm going to do the heart a little bit, and I don't even have to go all the way around. I can just hit a few spots and loosen up my drawing. And I'm going to do the same thing here. Okay, so cute, so cute, so cute, so cute. Then you can come in if you want to do some uni-ball work. You could come in and add a few little bright feathers on his wing, maybe just a few little on his tail. Maybe you add a little bit of white on his tummy too, those little check marks. Just to add a little bit that way, just to give your bird a little bit more detail. Now make sure you sign your picture, find an area. I like to do mine in pencil, so I'm just going to sign it right there. Right there. All right, there's the two little pictures, and they, you know, it is fun how they turn out every time. They look so different. And oh, I forgot to do the background. Oh my goodness, I forgot to do the background. Let's add a little bit of color in the background. I'm going to take my peach, my color peach, which has got some white in it. It's a color in my palette that's this really light color. It does have some white in there. And I'm going to pick up just a tiny bit of my brown. I want a real light color. And then I'm just going to wash in some color in my background here and there. I'm not trying to cover everything up. I'm going to leave some white in there, but I just wanted to add a little bit more detail. And I forgot to add the sprinkles, which kind of, I thought, added a lot to this picture. Okay, so we have our little washed background. Almost forgot the important steps. Just a little, kind of almost a tea stain, if you think of it that way. Now I'm going to pick up some of that brown. I'm going to actually add a little bit more black in there, maybe a little bit more brown. I want it to be kind of thick because I'm going to do a sprinkle look. Okay, now my background is still wet. Now if you don't want a lot of sprinkles on your bird, you could always, you know, cover your bird up a little bit and then come in and do a little tapping. And since my background is wet, some of those spots are going to soften down and they're not going to be like little round circles. So when I pick that up, I'm not going to get a ton of little extra spots on my bird. But look at that. I almost forgot to add the super special part of adding the little background and the little tapped in dots. So you can tell my paper was more wet there and those spots are just kind of very much softening. These ones will probably stay a little bit stronger of a little dot pattern, but I think it's super cute and it adds something to that picture. Well, that is it for tonight, my lovely friends, and those who might be watching the replay. Hello, hello. And those who might be new to my page, if you would like to subscribe and come on, I usually go live 2 times a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Welcome, welcome, welcome for everyone and for all abilities and for all stages. We're glad that you're here. It's been super fun to see new people come on, make comments. Yes, they leave comments underneath, and it's been so fun to see random people just making comments and saying that they're enjoying drawing along with me and painting, and they were glad that they found me, and I'm glad you found me too. So have a great evening. I'm glad you loved it, Carrie. Yes, and I do have a Facebook page too. I wanted to point that out. If you want to post your picture of what you draw underneath the advertisement for this drawing, go ahead and do that. I love to share everyone's work. I had to giggle at your cows the last time. Last time I was live, and I don't think I have it here, was the Highland cows. And those were interesting to see. Carrie said she didn't know if hers was scary or cute. I think Donna said the same thing about hers, but it's always interesting to see everyone's work because it doesn't have to look like mine to be good. And I so appreciate everyone who shares their work, and it's good to see those people that are improving your skills and practicing and enjoying art. It just makes me so, so happy. Well, that's it for tonight, my friends, and we'll hopefully see you next week. Bye now.